welcome this afternoon. I'll try to cover over the next 20 to 30 minutes the key messages on PPWR legislation and how we in KP are developing our product portfolio really to match the requirements of this upcoming legislation. So first of all, just our overall footprint. We are organizing KP into divisions. Our division focuses on food packaging, and we have also PhD division focusing on pharmaceutical packaging. 19 plants, highly focused in Europe business, and where we manufacture thermoform trays, flexible films, and rigid roll stock as well for form, fill, and seal customers. Let's deep dive in a quite complex topic, which is PPWR, but it opens a bunch of challenges and opportunities. This legislation, I want to launch this afternoon a key message, which is that this is a legislation focusing on packaging waste minimization. It's a waste reduction legislation. It's not a legislation directly focusing on the packaging, but indirectly. So it's about how we design the food packaging to really achieve the overall goal of minimizing the food packaging waste. And just for you to have in mind a figure, there is an ambition target of this legislation to reduce by 5% from the baseline of 2018. And this is a big ambition, because reducing 5% in an environment where there is a planned and expected forecasted increase of more than 20% means really a very great reduction. Let's deep dive into a few of the topics that legislation is covering. There are three elements that are key in this legislation. One is mandatory recycled content. Second is design for recyclability. And third, and much more important, is that by 2035, all packaging must comply with being recyclable at a scale to continue on the market. This is the ultimate ambition of the whole legislation, to drive recyclability at a scale. Apart from that, there are other elements like requirements on labeling, requirements on reuse, requirements on minimization on anti-packaging in everything that is put onto the market, avoidance of greenwashing. So there are a few additional elements in this complex piece of legislation. But as I said, keeping under the radar for this afternoon's slides, recycled content, design for recyclability, and ultimately recyclability at scale. There is a change of mindset in this piece of legislation. Let me start with a quick question. It's, if we have this this entire packaging placed into the market, how is it really recyclable at the scale? How do we measure that recyclability at the scale? Do we need to look to individual components by themselves? Do we need to look at the overall packaging as it is placed into the market? Those are the key questions that this legislation is trying to address. And the answer and the change of mindset is quite clear. We need to look at the full packaging item as it is placed into the market. We don't really need to look to individual items any longer, whether they are recyclable by themselves or not, but we need to look into if this lead film is facilitating the goal of the full and entire packaging being recycled at the scale. Timeline, just a flavor on timeline. We are in an interim time where we are still trying to understand, and the legislation is an umbrella that is developing further implementing acts of legislation which will clarify all these elements. How do we measure recycled content with a focus on post-consumer? How do we measure recyclability of the packaging? How do we grade the recyclability of this entire packaging? These are the key questions that will be addressed in the next period of 2 years, 2026, 2028, with a bunch of further legislation that are called by the European Commission implementing acts. Then the overall targets are set in 2030 and 2035. For 2030, there is mandatory recycled content, is 30% for PET contact sensitive packaging. It will be just 10% for other materials than PET. That means polyester or polypropylene. So this is the first milestone in 2030. Then there is the second milestone, 2035, where the recyclability at the scale TIC has to be achieved. And then there is the ambition in 2040 to increase beyond the percentages set up in 2030, to increase even further to 25% for other polymers and 50% for PET thermoforms. Yeah? So all in all, the pillars are very, very clear in this legislation. It's design for recyclability, recycled content mandatory targets, and the upscaling of a real recycling stream to fulfill the requirement of recyclability at the scale. All these three things and three pillars will not happen at all without incentives, without the schemes, making favorable environments to achieve the overall goals. Remember the overall ambition of reducing packaging waste. So there must be mandatory, and there will be mandatory modulated extended product responsibility fees that will drive these pillars to become reality. That means, as an example, the more recyclable the full packaging is according to the legislation, the less taxation from the EPR scheme perspective will have. The higher the recycled content material, the lower EPR fee, and the better they comply with the recyclability at the scale requirement, the less that the packaging will be taxed. As I said, still kind of an interim period over the last 2 years. There is a huge effort ongoing in the standardization bodies in Europe, working highly connected with the European Commission and the ARC, which is the organism in the European Commission responsible for the further implementing acts development. And we will foresee in the next 2 years a movement into harmonized design for recycling guidelines. So this is where what we are expecting for the next 2 years. We will be switching somehow in all this methodology. The legislation will say us, the industry, how, and all the packers and the retailers, how to move from the actual green, amber, red design for recycling tables into a real scoring and grading into recyclability grade A, B, or C. A and B will continue on the market. C, so the lowest grade will be discontinued, will have to be discontinued after 2035. As I briefly introduced, EPR scheme fees and eco-modulation is a key element. There are some countries which have already started and are well advanced in this roadmap. Let's say the Netherlands, let's say France as well. Let's say Germany as well has recently published the minimum standard last month in August, which is moving towards this direction of setting up the rules for modulation, for eco-modulation. And more countries will come, because this is a key element and mandatory from the PPWR. Our perspective as KP is to comply with the three big pillars: design for recycling, recycled content, and recycling stream at scale, but without forgetting on the performance of the product. We are highly committed to design all our products in a way that they provide the highest standards in terms of weight reduction, high speed in the lines, high confidence in the sealability, and all the functionality that the packaging is supposed to provide the food packers and retailers. In terms of what we have done as a company until now, you can see a flavor that our strategy is already progressing at a certain pace into these three pillars. You have on the screen the three pillars. If you look into recycled content usage, this is highly dependent on market demand, it's volatility around price versus virgin. But our commitment continues to become to be stable on the usage of recycled content and increase when possible, and when we see the demand from the end market, from our customers and ultimately retailers. In terms of closing the loop, which means recyclability at scale, we are growing slowly, but already more than 12% comes of the post-consumer recycled content comes from exclusively out of these thermoforms, out of PET thermoforms. So we are making big efforts together with the whole value chain, waste managers, recyclers, to collect properly, to increase collection, to increase sorting, to increase recycling of trays. And you will see later, but this is a reality in some of our products, like this that I have in my hand. And in terms of recyclability, we are doing major changes to increase and to switch from 5 years ago below 30% of portfolio being actually recyclable. And when I mean recyclable in the strictest definition, so that's something that can have an end market and have actually an end market as a secondary raw material. I'm not showing here on the slide figures on technically recyclable or recyclable according to certain guidelines. It's recyclable becoming a secondary raw material. We are making big progress there as well. It's key as well from our perspective and our company strategy, third-party validation of any claim and in any incorporation of recycled content or claim of recyclability. That's also a key element. And we are progressing in all of our sites with robust third-party scheme certifications. Same for recyclability. We are testing our products in some of the most demanding schemes and protocols that exist nowadays. This is the example of TSAP. This is just not testing on lab scale, but it's also going beyond that, testing 100 kgs, for example, of material, really proving that it's recyclable, that is not causing any distortion into the recycling stream in Europe. And now, if I continue and linking a little bit, those are the requirements of the PPWR. I have also covered a little bit the strategy and our vision as a company. These are how our portfolio align to these requirements and the overall strategy. Thermoform trays are fulfilling all these requirements of being designed for recyclability, having an individual recycling stream, and having the possibility to incorporate post-consumer recycled content. Except you see there the challenge we're still facing on polypropylene, on developing are PP safe for food contact, but we are as well working there with the whole value chain, waste managers and technology suppliers. An example is our KP Elite product. Elite is a product where we have replaced the need of a polyethylene sealing layer, and only by using an adhesive solution on the flange, we facilitate the sealing through contamination at the packers. In combination with our latest and best-in-class design, product design, and ribs, we can go beyond the actual weight requirements of the thermoform trays. We can lightweight even further, beyond 250 microns as well. We can combine any of our developments with tray-to-tray, which is our actual program to increase and to boost the recyclability of PET trays at the scales. And this is a great example we are very proud of, because we have developed jointly with a customer in Italy, we have developed our 100% tray-to-tray solution. This is actually, if you allow me to say, not fully sustainable long-term, because not all the products can be the flagship as this one, but it's actually proving 100% of trays a product can be made technically out of 100% trays, and this has to be a trigger to make real recycling of PET thermoforms. We have certified this product. It's the first one to the market, being and proving that it's possible. We are very pleased of having received some of the most important European awards to this extent, and as well, we are of course very proud that we have won this year the German Packaging Award with this product. It's proving high performance. It's already in the market at big volumes, so this can really be the first stone to increase the amount of PET trays that are recycled into the market. But this is where the question comes. It's what else do we need to trigger recyclability at the scale and fulfill the requirement of the PPWR? And we really need to collaborate in a complete value chain approach. We need collection, we need sorting to increase quite heavily to have the right supplied amount and the right quality. And we need as well demand from packers and retailers. So we need, at the moment, this is early stages, and we need to kind of link the supply and demand with the developments that are already made. Similarly to the preformed trays, we have a portfolio on rigid films, which also complies with the 3 pillar requirements we've just mentioned. An example is monoseal, which similarly to our Elite technology facilitates the sealing through contamination and most demanding conditions as food packers. It also as well in the high barrier version. And another product we have developed according to the Design for Recycling guidelines is the KP hot fill, which allows to hot filling processes with a slightly increased demand in temperature than the ones typically used for fresh protein. And as well, in the last product segment, we manufacture the flexibles. We develop leading films, we develop stretch and vacuum films that are fulfilling the requirements of Design for Recyclability. And we are highly committed, and we are working and focusing our efforts on develop a way to incorporate recycled content as well, which is still a challenge nowadays because of the high demand of transparency of the flexible films we produce. And as well, there is the element of food safety we need to guarantee, so we need the right technologies to be developed. And as said, certified recyclable lead film, flexi lead, and as well flexi flow. You can come to the booth. You can contact our colleagues on the booth and see more details on these products. And just as a wrap up, want to reiterate that we have in mind this full packaging approach that the legislation is demanding to us, and we are ready to comply with the 3 pillars that PPWR is putting us onto the table: design for recycling, recyclability at the recycled content, and recyclability at the scale. That's the most important, without with keeping, of course, the performance and the functionality. Any questions, we are more than happy to address them in the booth. So thank you for listening this afternoon.